I am unboxing and sharing a product spotlight of the new Atlas N-Scale Master Line -8 40BW with ESU Loc sound right now on Ron's Rail Reviews. Hi, and welcome to Ron's Rail Reviews. I got back into rail fanning as an adult in the mid-1990s, and at that time, GE's Dash 8s and Dash 9s were some of the most common locomotives on the rails. The era that I model is nearly 20 years later than that, but many of these locomotives were still in service, and so the models are of great interest to me. Well, Atlas has recently released a new version of its Dash 8 40BW. I was in need of some 4-axle locomotives for my layout, so I picked one of these locomotives up, and I'm going to show it to you today. Now, I do need to say that I purchased this locomotive, and this video is not sponsored in any way, so I'm going to give you an honest look at this locomotive exactly as I find it. So with that said, let's head over to the workbench and get started. This Atlas Dash 8 40BW is the Master Line Gold Series locomotive, top of the line for Atlas N-Scale. The one I purchased comes equipped with the ESU Loc Sound 5 sound decoder. The locomotive is also available in a silent DC version. Built in the late 1980s, Dash 8s and Dash 9s were some of the most common locomotives on the rails for years. They're easily identifiable by the dynamic brake gear behind the cab and their wide rooftop radiator grills. I purchased this 4-axle version to run in consist to haul locals and perform switching operations on my layout, which is set in the late 2000s. The model comes packaged in the ubiquitous clear plastic jewel case with custom foam packing material. Pulling it out of the package, I noticed first that the locomotive had a reasonable amount of truck side frame, fuel tank, and air reservoir piping and detail. More outstanding details include separately applied grab irons on the top of the nose. It also comes with modeler applied sunshades and holes drilled to install these sunshades. It has blackened metal wheels and Accumate couplers. As with all Atlas models, the locomotive comes with an exploded parts diagram as well as a quick start guide for the Loc Sound decoder with a list of functions and common CVs. After the initial inspection, I checked the model for standards compliance. The wheels were all engaged, and the coupler and trip pin heights were perfect. I weighed the locomotive, and it came in at 3.1 ounces, which is pretty standard for a 4-axle N-Scale locomotive. I wanted to check out the inside of the model, so I pulled the shell off to reveal the chassis and decoder. Atlas redesigned their frames a few years ago. Instead of wiper pickups, they now have pickups that come in direct contact with the wheel bearings and are wired directly to the frame, which then transfers the power to the decoder. This is a much more efficient design than before. Removing the fuel tank reveals the speaker underneath. As I take this model out to the layout to perform some operating tests, let me say that if you're enjoying this review and would like to see more model reviews and hobby news, be sure to subscribe below and click the little bell icon so you can catch future videos. At the layout, I tested the engine for slow speed operation. Remember, this test is run straight out of the box with no CVs changed, and the locomotive has not been broken in. Under these conditions, at speed step 1, the motion of the engine was a little herky-jerky, but at speed step 2, it smoothed out nicely. The same was true both in forward and reverse. Running the locomotive through a speedometer at speed step 2, it ran consistently at a scale 4.3 miles per hour in both directions. I tested the Accumate couplers by coupling at slow speed to 2 cars with microtrains couplers. Accumates don't always perform perfectly in this test, but these coupled just fine in every test I performed.
Personally, I usually keep Accumate couplers unless or until they begin to give me problems, and then I'll upgrade them to microtrains. Next, I tested the locomotive pulling 25 cars on a flat grade through a couple of turnouts and a curve. Under these conditions, it pulled effortlessly. I also shoved the same cut of cars back through the same trackage with no problems. Finally, I performed a sound test. I did have one issue with this locomotive out of the box, in that the sound of the prime mover did not notch up with the movement and speed of the locomotive. But after fooling with it for a few minutes, I factory reset the decoder by setting CV8 to a value of 8, and this completely fixed the issue. Give a listen to the basic sounds of this locomotive straight out of the box. And here are some close-up photographs of the model. I really like this locomotive and look forward to getting it speed matched and operating on my layout. Atlas has been a quality, reliable player in the N-scale locomotive market for years, and this model appears to uphold that standard. As of the recording of this video, this locomotive is available in a number of road names and numbers from most hobby retailers, including Midwest Model Railroad, where I purchased mine. If reviews like this are of value to you, be sure and check out the links on your screen for more Model Railroad reviews, and I will see you on the next video.
10, Lizzie?